Hey, it's Willie Armelini from Flowers and Scents with your floral industry buzz. Okay, today I want to interview Ralph DeBoer from Rosaflor in Canada. These guys are incredible how they've done greener growing. Their green growing process is worth seeing. So we're going to talk to Ralph about it because they do many things that I think a lot of people are not doing. So I thought it'd be interesting for you to see about it. So Ralph DeBoer. All right, Ralph DeBoer from Rosaflor, in this lovely place we call Canada up there on the northern side of us. And it's a pleasure to have you here on Flowers and Scents. And yeah, I have you here because I kept hearing about what Rosaflor is doing in terms of growing greener. And and the fact that you're working with Jet Fresh, who I know and love well, I said, I got to find out what's going on here. And so, with that said, you have very interesting growing practices, and you have a video that I'm going to show in the end of this later, and put a link there so people can see it because it's going to describe a whole lot better in detail than we can probably do here. And and I think I want to know why. Why have you embarked upon this and spent millions of dollars, I'm guessing? It's a very Dutch look, if you will. You're growing in greenhouses like the Dutch. I've been over there many times and seeing how they do things. And they were either forced to do things more efficiently because of labor or because they wanted to. And you've done so many different things in terms of how you grow and how you approach growing. So let's talk about that a bit. How'd you start this?
Yeah, great question, Willie. Again, thanks for having me on today. Yeah, no, how did we start it? Yeah, Rosaflor has been around for about 47 or almost 48 years now. It started 47, 48 years ago with my father-in-law. Actually started the business, and he was a rose grower, and I would still say he is a rose grower. Even being 75 years old, he still considers himself a rose grower because that's what he does and he loves. And he came to Canada a bunch of years ago as an immigrant, and he was a rose grower from Holland and brought his skill set and his passion, his love for growing roses to Canada, and adopted a lot of the practices that we still use today have been firmly implanted in our business and in our philosophy and in our processes, actually.
Hmm. And that sort of explains the name because, as far as I can tell now, the only thing you sell that has a rose in it is a rose lily.
Yeah, we've got we're just finishing off a 5-year run of a very small area of garden roses. But
Oh,
yes, you're absolutely right. We started out as only a rose grower 47 years ago, and then from there branched into other cut flower products. Absolutely.
all right. So you have six or eight, or I don't know, I forgot, lost count of how many different processes you have. And maybe we should breeze through them. And again, in the video, it'll go into much more detail. But again, the why is important. Why you're doing this to be efficient and I think to be a good steward of the environment.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, you've hit on a good point there, Willie. It's a lot of us, and no matter what we do, we talk a lot about what we do, but underpinning that is probably the more important question is the why part. And for us, the why part, in terms of especially growing greener, we do firmly believe, and experience has taught us, that when you do things well, and when you do things that help the environment, you do things in a sustainable way that keeps you around longer, actually, because you're doing things smartly and efficiently that help the environment. And I think at the heart of being a grower, you've got your hands in the dirt. You're appreciating, what the soil that you're growing in. You're appreciating the clean air you breathe. You appreciate the clean water that the plants use, and you appreciate the power of the sun and the heat that makes all of this happen. So the why part is super important to us. Yeah, we firmly believe that's the right way to do business, to be sustainable, and we do regard ourselves as being sort of, stewards of the earth. Like we've been given a gift, to live on this earth and enjoy the beauty of flowers, and we want to do that well.
And you're in, I think, the St. Catharines area down that way up or up that way around there, because that's
Yeah,
a nice little climate.
just south of the Niagara area on sort of the north shore of Great Lake Erie.
Hmm. So, all right. So you're using a multitude of different things. You're using wind. So you got a wind generator.
Yep. Yeah. So certainly on the energy side, the biggest two components of the two major components of energy that we require to do what we do are, basically heat and electricity. And to your point about the wind generator, yeah, generating some of our own electricity is important to us. We do generate some of our own electricity from wind power. We also do use natural gas to generate some electricity through cogeneration. And we complement what we don't generate ourselves with purchasing power from our electrical grid, from the Ontario grid here.
Yeah, from your grid, and you're also using, which I thought was very interesting. You're burning up anything that'll burn. You, you seems like you burn up all the wood products there. I was curious how you clean them. You mentioned in this video that you sort of clean them because you're using pallets and different things. I know pallets
Yeah,
are part of our industry
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Great question and interesting story. Yeah, just after the year 2000 or so, we started to investigate alternative ways of creating heat, and one of the ways we looked at was using biomass product, and particularly in our case, reclaimed wood product. We found in southern Ontario here there was a surplus amount of wood material that was being unused, and sadly, in some cases, even landfilled. And landfilling wood, there's a better way to deal with that. And we clean the wood products up. We've got a few partners that we've developed over the years who deal in the wood waste business, and we bring in a clean wood product like pallets and skids and construction waste, etc. We clean any non-wood product off of that material, and we process it into a wood chip. And that wood chip product is fed into our biomass system. We've got 3 large biomass boilers that create hot water to heat the greenhouses from this wood product. Yeah.
And heat's a big deal for you because obviously you're in Canada. It gets a little cold, chilly up there. And these are processes I don't see in South America because they don't necessarily need them there. Heat's not their enemy there, or their friend, perhaps, in many cases.
Yes.
Um, and so it just goes in there and then you burn it up and that produces the energy. And I was curious, you're using every little bit of rain and recycle your water and that's stuff I've seen before, but you're taking it to a whole new level as far as I can see. You got pipes running everywhere. It must be a nightmare from a plumber standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, that's the sort of the rainwater collection system and the overall irrigation infrastructure that we've developed over the years, Willie, it's quite complex. Having said that, in principle, it's simple in that, we literally capture the rainwater that falls here. And typically in southern Ontario, 80, 90, 100 centimeters or so. Picture 3 feet of water in any given year that will fall. And the principle is simple in that, we try to collect as much of that as possible on our greenhouse roofs. And it gets collected very similar to, say, a house type of situation, but they're greenhouses, of course. The water runs off the roof into a 4-inch pipe, and then the pipes get larger and larger and larger as they collect more and more water to a point where we've got a discharge into our freshwater ponds. So if we get a few centimeters of rain or say an inch of rain, most or all of that can be effectively collected into a freshwater pond. And in the sort of rainier months of the year, we collect a surplus of water so that in, say, months like June, July, and August, where we are now, it tends to be drier. So we draw from that fresh water in the drier months of the year and collect it in the wetter months of the year. So that's a super, actually simple, but yet effective way to manage our water. And for that reason, we don't use well water. We don't have municipal water like many other greenhouse operations might.
Hmm. And are we fishing in the lake there or in your pond?
It's funny that you asked that. A number of years ago, behind Plant One, I did put a bunch of rainbow trout in. I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I put about 500 of these rainbow trout. They're 8 to 12 inches long. And the idea is that people who know more about fishing than I do say that there are certain varieties of fish that you can stock your ponds with, and they help keep the ponds cleaner. So it's a small way to say, hey, if we can keep that fresh water as fresh and clean as possible when we draw it in for the plants, that is an effective way to manage your water well. The other, as you touch on that point, Willie, the other point that people find super interesting is what I just described to you was our freshwater system. Alongside, in parallel to that, we've got what we call our return water system. And that system grabs all of the water that the plants don't use on any given day and collects it into a separate retention system. And the beauty of that is that we don't let the used return water go off farm. We keep it on farm so that for two main reasons. We can use that water again, which is helpful. And just as importantly, we can use the fertilizer again. So rather than letting some of those fertilized components off farm, sure, we capture them in a return pond. We clean that water up through a biological wetlands. We filter it, and then we reintroduce it back into our irrigation system. So it's a pretty neat combination of fresh water from rainwater and then reusing the return water that's fertilized already. And that saves us in terms of using more water, but also we don't have to add nearly as much fresh fertilizer because we're recycling the fertilizer that the plants did not use.
So when it comes out of there, you put it in the wetlands. So you're fertilizing the wetlands too, I guess.
Yeah, so the wetlands are specifically designed with like a pea stone substrate type of material that physically filters the water. And as well, we have specialized plants on the wetlands, like bulrush type of plants that do a good job of absorbing any material that might be in that water or any pathogens or viruses or bacteria that might be there. Some of these specialized plants are able to absorb some of that and purify it before it comes back into our system. So it's a really neat biological effort to clean up the water and not allow, again, this fertilized water to run off farm.
All right, and then you also, which I think is a wonderful thing, is you use good bugs to kill bad bugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you've done your homework, Willie. It's great. Yeah, no, it's part of the sort of the acronym that some growers are familiar with is IPM, Integrated Pest Management. But you nailed it. It's essentially, in layman's terms, we bring good insects here in our greenhouses to try to combat the bad insects. And that's been a strategy that many growers around the world have used now for a couple decades, I'd say.
Yeah.
But now in 2025, like we're at a point where like it's finally tuned to a point where we've got a really good balance between maintaining the right amount of good bugs to eat the right amount of bad bugs. And some of the magic and science, if you will, sometimes it feels like it's a combination of both, is that you want a certain amount of bad bugs. Say, things like aphids and thrips, which are common to many growers. You do want to maintain a small amount of those insects in your greenhouse so that the good bugs have a little bit to eat. So you maintain ideally a low population of bad bugs and a low population of good bugs, and they will go up and down throughout the season. But it's a very effective way to control the nasty insects which are harming our plants without using chemicals.
And then is it bees? Is it a bee that's the good one?
Well, it's like, there's all kinds of, not necessarily bees in terms of when people think about bees in greenhouses, they think about pollination. There are not necessarily, they are related. Some of them are related to bees. There's maybe a dozen or more varieties of insects that we use, some of which are what they call parasitic wasps. They're not like the kind of wasps that sting you, but they're really small parasitic wasps that actually will eat bad insects that harm the plants. Yeah.
Very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about what you do there. You grow flowers there. You grow lots of flowers there, and obviously you did. You switched from roses, I would imagine, because a lot of roses come from South America, and it's hard to compete with all those roses coming from South America, which has a wonderful growing climate for growing roses. So you're growing things that don't necessarily travel well. You ship everything and water it, I believe.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful thing to keep flowers hydrated. But you're growing Gerbers and snaps and all sorts of other products that you're real good at, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, yeah, you've summarized kind of a little bit of our history there, Willie, in that, yeah, we've, as I indicated, yeah, we started out exclusively as a rose grower, late 70s, 80s, and I'd say into the early 90s. That worked really well. But I would say early to mid 90s, especially, yeah, some of the South American countries, primarily Colombia and Ecuador, did a really good job at growing roses because of, yeah, the elevations and the day length that they've got there.
Sure.
So say some places in the higher elevations in Colombia and Ecuador, nice cool nights, say, 12, 14 degree nights, moderate days, 20 to 24 degree days, and having that type of temperature, much of the year. Those are just ideal places to grow roses. And we found ourselves in the early to mid 90s, having a real challenge to competitively send a rose product to market, just because of our input costs were simply higher because of our heating and lighting requirements for roses. So for that reason, we started looking at other specially cut flower crops, as you indicated, like gerbera, mini gerbera, large gerbera. Snapdragons are a good example of what we looked at. Now we currently also grow Lysianthus, which is a major flower product for us. And those are products that require a little bit higher level specialty in terms of what type of greenhouse you need, a heating and lighting regime that's a little bit more specialized. And they're also very sensitive to the logistics side, as you've alluded to. It's like being able to, say, grow a Snapdragon or a mini gerbera or a large gerbera or Lysianthus and grow it well, cut it on farm, put it in vertically in water in our own pail on our own truck to our own customer within our North American market. We found those cut flower products were uniquely good and a good fit for Rosaflor in terms of being able to do a specialized cut flower product, especially, again, directly in water, staying in water, maintaining the cold chain all the way to our customer. And some of our South American colleagues, of course, because of where they're located, have a difficult time doing that effectively.
Sure. It makes sense. Your product line makes total sense. And being in the logistics business in my past life, I know that getting buckets back is not always simple because they disappear sometimes.
Yes,
And
yes.
you don't have to buy your Home Depot bucket or something.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a little bit of a story in itself, Willie. In that, yeah, for years, most of our history, we've been shipping our product in, again, our own pail, yellow bucket. We call it the Yellow Bucket Club. Many of our customers have picked up on this, and so we've got our yellow buckets here. And over years we've developed a system whereby we work with all of our customers to ship our buckets to them, and then also try to get as many of those buckets back as possible. And we're at a point where if we track our buckets, our buckets can be used, 30, 40, 50 or more times before they kind of, disappear into the system. And from an environmental perspective, if we do the cost benefit analysis and the use of that bucket in its lifetime over time, it actually makes sense to use a bucket like that and repeat as much as possible. And even when it doesn't come back to us, we see lots of evidence where even if it doesn't come back to us, it is still used in somebody's system. Sure. for flowers. So yeah, that's been a kind of a good news story as well.
And so, Ralph, who does Rosaflor sell to? Your wholesale markets, or who's your customers?
Yeah, basically cut flower wholesalers are our primary market. We've loosely broken our customer base down into basically all wholesalers, but most of them are floral wholesalers that most people would be aware of. Large players in sort of our primary market in Ontario and Quebec, here in Canada, and then the northeastern U.S. is a really good catch for us. Having said that, as we've grown over the years, our trucks have gotten larger, our logistics have gotten more efficient to a point where we can get down into the southern U.S. and even across, towards the southern central U.S. On our own trucks. Again, our product in our pail, in our water, on our truck with our driver directly to our customer. That's kind of the secret sauce, Willie.
Yeah, I can see that. It doesn't get much better than that because, again, I've been on the other side, so I know that it's a challenge logistics is a challenge in itself, and trucking is a challenge in itself. And before we go away, I'm not even sure what's the tariff situation now. You got a tariff or don't have one at the moment?
Yeah, currently, thankfully, we're operating without a tariff. We are in agriculture here in Canada. We are operating under the USMCA, the free trade agreement that we currently it is currently being honored. So, and that's a moving target, I think, as we all know, and we
Yeah.
hope that we can remain that way. Yeah, it's selling our product to our Canadian customers as well as our friends in the United States is important to us, and I think it's going well. And we're confident that we can continue between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. I think within North American producers, I think we can carry on doing business seamlessly together.
Well, it seems like you're doing just fine, and you're adding some greenhouses, I see, and more power to you and Rosaflor. So, Ralph, thank you very much for this time. It's been wonderful, and I will again. I'll put a link to that video you shared with me, and so people, if they want to dig deeper, it's a deep dive and a wonderful thing. You get to see all the fancy machines and everything else.
Yeah,
So, and you
awesome. Yeah, no, and I appreciate you taking the time, Willie, and appreciate the work that you do within our industry in promoting, the good things that are happening.
okay? Well, thank you, and I'll see you somewhere. I'm sure at some convention somewhere. So,
Okay,
you have a
thanks,
nice
Willie.
day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens.